Hi, welcome to the Left-Handed Bandit mobile paint party experience. We're going to jump right into the painting and go over the supplies that we have. You should have a cup of water, 2 paintbrushes. For this kit, we're going to be using a foam brush and a fine tip brush. The paper towel comes in handy, and you're going to need a plate of paint. We have the colors white, black, yellow, purple, blue, and red. We're gonna go through step by step, part by part, and at the end of the painting, you should have something that comes pretty close to mine. So, what we're gonna do is we're gonna start first with the foam brush. We're gonna take this foam brush, dip it in our water, swish it around, don't bang it on the bottom of the cup. Tap it on the side of the cup. Then dab both sides off on your paper towel. Dabbing it off gets rid of the excess water so it doesn't drip down our canvas. As you're going through watching this video, remember that you can pause the video at any point that you like. Pausing the video and rewinding helps out in case I go just a little bit too fast for you, or if this may be your first time painting. The first step we're going to do with our foam brush is we're going to take just a little bit of yellow paint. We're going to choose about 3 or 4 areas on our canvas around our lips. And with that yellow paint and that foam brush, we're going to choose those 4 areas and lightly dab in yellow paint to those 4 areas. We're using acrylic paint, which dries really fast. So with these steps, you don't want to take too long because if you do, the paint will begin to dry on you. After we have our yellow on our canvas, we're going to wipe the excess paint off of the paintbrush or the foam brush and onto your paper towel. Next, we're going to add our next color, which is going to be a little bit of orange. So to take orange, or to make orange, we're going to take a little bit of red paint, mix it with just a touch of yellow paint, leave some yellow for later because we will need more, and mix up about the size of a nickel amount of orange paint. When you have that orange paint mixed up, we're going to go back on our canvas, and right near that yellow, we're going to swipe in orange. For every space of yellow, swipe in just a little bit of orange. As you paint, those colors should start to blend together. So I'm still adding around. I'm leaving some white background exposed because we're going to add a few more colors in just a sec. So after we're done with that orange paint, what we're gonna do next is we're gonna add our next color. You can take your foam brush, rinse it off in water, tap it, get the excess water out. And again, I'm dabbing both sides on my paper towel to get that excess water out. I'm gonna go into my next color, which is gonna be purple. So with a clean-ish foam brush, we're going to take just a touch of purple. We're going to choose about 3 random areas on our canvas to add this purple. So I'm going to go right about here, right here. I'm going to go right over here, and maybe just a little bit at the bottom. I'm going to wipe the excess paint off of my foam brush and onto the paper towel. You don't have to dip it in water. And after I got that excess paint off of my brush and onto the towel, I'm going to go right back in and I'm going to add some more yellow. So to the areas that have already been painted on the canvas, add just a touch of yellow. The reason we're doing this is because, again, we're using acrylic paint. And acrylic paint dries really fast, so you want to make sure that that paint is not drying on us by adding just a touch more so that we can start blending these colors together. The next color that we're going to use is going to be just a little bit of blue. So I'm wiping the excess paint off of my paintbrush again and onto the paper towel. I'm gonna grab just a small touch of blue paint. And I'm gonna choose 4 very tiny random areas to add just a touch of blue to, 3 and 4. So now we have our background colors on our canvas, and now it's time to blend these together. We're gonna blend these together using white paint. And we're gonna do this pretty quick because if we don't, the paint will dry. If you're finding yourself rewinding the video and your paint is drying up, then a tip is just to speed up just a little bit because it will keep happening unless you blend those colors while they're still wet. So, I got my brush nice and pretty cleanish, dipped it in water, tapped it off and dabbed it. Now I'm gonna blend all these colors together with white paint. So I'm gonna grab just a touch of white paint. All you need is a little bit. And using white paint, I'm gonna go in to these open areas on my canvas that are already the background white canvas, add just a touch of white to these different areas, just dabbing it on to those areas. And now we can start blending that paint in. So I'm gonna quickly blend this paint in just to show you the effect that we're going for. So when I'm blending, I'm holding the brush right towards the middle. I'm gonna lightly apply it to the canvas, and I'm going to flick my wrist, really just flicking my fingers, flicking my wrist, and those colors are gonna automatically blend together for me. If you get a little bit of paint in the outline of the lips, that's okay. We can always go back and adjust it later. The goal is to have a nice assortment of blended colors on your canvas. So you don't want a monotone of mixed colors all together taking up the background. So as you paint, you may need to wipe your paintbrush off on your paper towel if you're noticing that too many colors are getting on your canvas or on your paintbrush, I should say. So I'm wiping the brush off every so many flicks. If it starts getting too muddy, I give it a nice wipe. You don't have to rinse it in water. You can just simply wipe it off on your paper towel, working your way all around, getting a nice blended rainbow background. If you notice that there's small bits of the canvas peeking through the background, just lightly whisper over them. You don't gotta press too hard. The key to making it nice and smooth is to blend very, very lightly. Feel free to go back in and grab more white paint if you need it. I'm starting to run out, so I'm gonna grab a little bit, put it down here. I'm gonna put some over here. So I got some more white paint on. I'm gonna continue blending. Blend right here on the bottom. Paint's still pretty wet. It's turning all sorts of different colors. Got oranges, greens, purples, blues. And I'm lightly wisping my way around the canvas. If you need to pick the canvas up for a quick second and get the bottom edge, feel free to do so. If you want to get the sides and edges of your canvas, feel free to do that as well. Continue blending in. I'm going to put mine right back on because I got that bottom edge already. Twist it so you can see a little bit better. Now I'm going up here. I'm going to blend these colors together up here. I'm getting it a little bit in my lip shape, but that's okay. I can fix that later. It's got a little bit area left to blend. Okay, and now we got our background all ready. Now, before we move to the next step, if you want to go back and add some of your favorite colors that you like, feel free to go ahead and just go in and layer back up. There's no rules to this. It's almost like freestyling, but the more random brush strokes and colors you add, then the more contrast and, you know, detail you're going to be adding to your painting. So feel free to add as much as you like. My advice is try not to go overboard because it will get crowded and become too busy. So maybe just choose one or two more colors, maybe a little bit more white, and then add that right on, and then call it a day for the background. And again, at the end of the painting, if you want to layer up, feel free to layer up and add more of those colors as well. And I'll show you how to do that. So that's our background, at least for now. So while the background is drying, we're going to take this foam brush, going to drop it in our water. Now, if you're not ready to move to the next part, now is the time to maybe either pause the video or be ready to rewind the video. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to be switching to my regular tipped paintbrush. I'm not using the foam brush anymore, at least not for the rest of the painting unless we touch the background again. With my detail brush, I'm going to be starting off by filling in these lips. and then I'm gonna take it from there. So for this step, you're gonna need this brush. We're gonna be using some red paint. So take your brush, dip it in your water, swish it around, tap it on the side of your cup, dab both sides off on your paper towel. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna start by filling in the inside of the lips just with that red color alone. I'm getting this nice and center for you can see a little bit better because we're gonna go wide with the details in a few. So I'm gonna just take regular red paint. I'm going to apply it to the inside of the lips. It's okay if you cover up some of those black outlines. We can always get those back later. But as I'm filling this in, you can either go ahead and start filling it in from any part of the lips, or you can outline them first and then work your way in towards the middle. I like to outline because it kind of gives me a borderline to not go over as I'm painting the rest. And also while you're painting this, I'd like you to keep some of the inside of the lips open. It doesn't have to be the entire inside like I'm going to do with mine, but having a couple of areas of open canvas for this red step is going to help us add in some white later and create some highlights and details in the lips that are going to show which parts of the lips are a little bit more puffier or which parts of the lip are a little bit more three-dimensional. Give it some detail. So I'm leaving mine open just like this. You can go ahead and add some more paint to the middle if you'd like, but this is where I'm going to stop with my red for the top lip. Before I move to the bottom lip, I'm going to add more detail. I'm going to wipe the excess paint off of my paintbrush onto my paper towel. I'm not dipping it in water right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go straight to the white paint. Grab a touch of white. You don't need too much. And you're going to fill in the inside of those lips. And that white paint is going to start touching that red paint, and it's going to start blending and making more of a pink tone. So the goal is to make it a nice, smooth blend. And to get that, again, just like we did with our foam brush, you're going to hold the paintbrush right in the middle, lightly apply it to your canvas, flick your wrist, or even flick your fingers, and it's going to do it automatically. If you press too hard, it won't blend as well. So just lightly press against it, go back and forth, keep on wisping. The more time you get to this, the better it's going to look. And if you do this while the paint is wet, then the smoother it's going to blend. If you wait too long to start blending your paint, the paint will start to dry out. Because again, remember, this is acrylic paint. Acrylic paint dries within minutes. Usually within 5 minutes, it's dry to the touch, and it gets hard to work with. So I got the inside of those filled in. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to wipe the excess paint off of my paintbrush onto my paper towel. Again, remember, you can feel free to pause the video or rewind the video if you need more time for whatever step. But I'm moving on to the next step, which is going to add some tones to that top lip. So I'm wiping off the excess paint onto the paper towel. I'm going to grab just the teeniest amount of black paint. Very teeny amount. You don't need much at all for this step. So with just this teeny amount of black paint, may even need to rewind this if you don't understand the step, but I'm going to lightly drag my paintbrush around the outside edges of the lips. I'm adding black to this paint just because with it being wet and us adding some black to this red, it's going to give it a more solid detail around the lips. If your paint is too dry, then you'll need to either add more red paint, or what you can do is take your paintbrush, dip it back in the water, tap it on the side of your cup, but leave just a little bit of water on that bristle. If we add water to paint and we have like a little bit of water trapped inside our bristles, it loosens the paint on our canvas and allows us to blend it nice and smooth. Now my edges were nice and dry, but I added some water, and now it's starting to smoothly blend together. And you'll notice that there's a bit of a shadow that's appearing on the outer edges, and that shadow is going to add some detail. Now, if you're not comfortable doing this step, you do not have to do this step, but I'm just trying to show you some ways of getting some more detail packed into your lips. So, add just a little bit more black. Again, I've watered down this black and I'm not using a lot of it at all. A little bit goes a long way. Less is more when it comes to these steps here. So I'm gonna finish giving it a tone around. Feel free to go back in and add more red or white if you need to. This middle got a little bit too dark, so I'm adding just a touch of red and white. I don't even gotta dip my paintbrush in water. I can just keep wiping the excess off on the paper towel and going right back in and making those adjustments. It's drying up on me again, so I'm adding just a little bit of water. Remember not to add too much water, otherwise it's gonna drip down your canvas. So I'm kind of liking the way this is looking, so I'm gonna call it a day for that top lip. I'm going to get ready to move to the bottom lip, and everything I did to the top lip, I'm essentially doing the same thing to the bottom. So I'm gonna outline that bottom lip in a second with red paint, and then from the red paint, I'm gonna switch over to the white paint, and then from the white, I'm gonna switch over to the black, the same way I did the top. But before I do that, I'm gonna rinse this paintbrush off in water, get it nice and clean. I'm gonna use the same paintbrush again, tapping on the side of the cup, dabbing both sides off on the paper towel. Now I got a nice clean paintbrush, and I'm going to, again, now fill in this bottom part. The bottom part is a little bit different, but it starts off the same way. What I'm gonna do first for the bottom part is I'm going to, again, outline it with this red paint. I'm gonna speed up a little bit, only because I want my paint to blend together nice and smooth without having to go back and add more. So if you need to pause this video or rewind this video, feel free to do so. But I'm going to move very fast for this step just so that my paint won't dry up. So now that I got that outline, I'm gonna make sure it's nice and smooth, no globs of paint. If you got globs of paint, that'll slow you down later, so try to make it nice, smooth application of the paint. So now, got my outline to my bottom lip, and I want to do one more thing before I add in this white paint. I'm going to still use some red paint, still with the same paintbrush. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to take this bottom line, I'm going to add just a couple of curves to that lip. So I'm not choosing a particular number, but I'm just going to freestyle maybe one curve, two curves. Some of these curves are going to be shorter or longer than the others, and depending on which side of the lip you're on depends on which direction the curve should go. So you may need to rewind this in case you need to re-explain, but on this right side of the lip, I'm curving up and over towards the center, and I'm gonna go on the left side and curve in the opposite direction. And later, as we paint in this white for our next step, that's gonna make a little bit more sense. So I got my red on, I'm rinsing my paintbrush off. I'm gonna jump right into my white paint so that this red paint doesn't dry up too much on me. So clean my paintbrush after I was done with the red. I'm going into my white paint, and I'm going to fill in that inside area with white paint. Same way I did the top, except when we get towards the bottom of these curves that we've added, we're just gonna work within those spaces. So work within the spaces, curve your brush strokes. Pretend as if you're painting an actual lip. And I'll probably explain that much easier it is to do, especially with us not being in the same room, but the best advice I can give to you is pretend that you're painting an actual real set of lips. Use the actual shape to fill it out as if you're curving along the lips. Notice I'm leaving some of those red curves in there, and I may even go back in a second and add more red paint. So I'm curving with the lip, curving it up and over. I'm on the left side now, so I'm curving in the opposite direction. You know, try to get it as smooth as you can. Remember, hold the brush in the middle and lightly apply it. That's the best way to blend these colors. I'm definitely going to be adding some more red in just a second when I'm done with this white. You don't have to try to get each brush stroke completely perfect, because sometimes it's those messy brush strokes that make your painting look completely different and professional. So again, remembering less is always more. So I got this here, but it's not complete yet. I want to go back in and grab a little bit more of my red paint, and I'm going to redefine those curves again because they're going to tell a story later. So I'm going back into my curves. Remember to curve in the opposite direction depending on which side of the lip you're on. Using that red paint, I just need a little bit. I don't need too much. Re-put those curves on there. Feel free to rewind the video. Feel free to pause the video. If you know me personally, feel free to reach out. I can answer your questions. So I'm liking the way that's looking. I'm going to go ahead and take it one step further by rinsing off this brush. And the same way we add this dark tone right here to the top lip, we're gonna do the same thing to the bottom lip. Then we'll have just a couple more quick things to do, and then we will take a quick break so the canvas can dry. So with this next step, again, remember, we're using just a little bit of black. I'm gonna use some black. You can water down your black. You can either add water directly to the paint on your plate, or you can add the water to the paintbrush. But I'm going to lightly drag in some dark detail, especially along this top part of the bottom lip. That's gonna be really important because that's where the mouth opens up. It's gonna make it look a little bit more realistic. And I'm gonna work fast because some of this paint is drying. I'm gonna outline. Remember, less is more. You need just a little bit of that black paint, and I should have enough. And I'm gonna go in now and start working on blending. It's drying up on me already, so I'm just gonna add a little bit of water to my paintbrush. I can carry some of this black paint can carry into the curves on the bottom lip. It can add some nice effects actually. So feel free, just try not to add too much because if you do, it might be hard to save your painting later. So I'm working with the curves of the lips, mixing in just a little bit of that black, just a little bit. Still got some of that red showing. I'm lightly wisping the canvas, flicking my fingers and flicking my wrists. My brush is drying out again, so I'm gonna grab a little bit of water so that I can blend smoothly. See how that water is making it nice and smooth? Might be hard to tell through the camera, but in person, I'm sure it's doing that. So I got a little bit of a blob right here. I just want to smooth over, and then I think we're going to be in good shape. And then we can always add more colors and layer up on this and future steps towards the end of the painting. So this is not going to be our final look for our lips. If you want to go back in and add more red or add more black, feel free to do so, but I promise you there's more steps that we can take with these lips, and they're going to look much different at the end. But for now, if you're looking close to this, then we can definitely work with that, and you're on the right track. So I'm just going to add a couple more quick little touch-ups to mine, and then I'm going to do one more quick thing, and then we're going to let this canvas dry so we can finish it on up. So I'm gonna rinse that off. If there's something close to that, we can work with that for now. So I've rinsed off my paintbrush, and what I'm gonna do next is I'm going to go in and I'm going to I'm going to take some black paint, and I'm looking on this inner part of the mouth, under the teeth. Now, I'm going to fill this in with black. Straight black paint. Nice and solid. Make sure you don't overlap into the actual lips. A nice solid amount of black paint. No globs. It's going to slow us down later. If it's a little bit transparent, feel free to go in and add a second layer of black paint when it dries up, or even before it dries up. I'm probably going to add mine after that dries up because it's going to go in a lot more solid. After I paint the inside of my mouth black, I'm going to rinse my paintbrush off again. And this step is optional. You don't have to do this. And I repeat, this is an optional step. Because I got a little bit more practice, I like to add a little bit of detail. If you're a person that likes detail and likes a challenge, you're more than welcome to join in on this step. But I've cleaned my brush. I'm going to grab just a touch of white paint. And I'm going to quickly fill in my teeth avoiding the black that I just put and avoiding the actual gum spaces you can see on the top. So I'm just adding white to my teeth. And I'm doing this fast because in a second I'm going to add in just a little bit of black. And if you like to be very creative and different, you can even take a little bit of that yellow with a little bit, and I mean a tiny, tiny, tiny amount of black, and you can create gold teeth. If you have other crafts at home like glitter or anything that you already have in home, you can add a little bit of glitter to the teeth, or you can let this dry and add glitter at a later time. So that way you'll have some fronts or some gold teeth. So I got white applied to the inside of my teeth. That softened my lines up, makes the smile look a little bit more realistic. And again, with the teeniest, tiniest amount of black paint that you can get, you don't need much. I'm gonna take it and on each tooth to one side, add just a flick of that paint color, that black, and it's gonna turn gray. It's gonna give us a little bit of a shadow on our teeth. Just makes a little bit more detail, makes it look a little bit more realistic. If you wanna add more black, feel free, but again, just a teeny bit at a time, less is more. But notice how I'm adding that detail and I'm smoothing it, I'm flicking it, and I'm blending it in. And it's making my teeth look a little bit more realistic. And you can go as hard as you want. Just don't add too much black, otherwise you're gonna have black teeth. So I got some gray details on my teeth, and we are officially at a pause point. So we're gonna let this dry for a few, and when it's done drying, then we can go ahead and finish the painting off by putting all of our foreground details on. So it won't be too long until we're done with this. So again, feel free to rewind the video if you'd like. Feel free to reach out to me if you know me personally for questions. I would do my best to assist you. But this is something close to what we're looking for the first half of the painting. If you got anything close to this, you're in good shape, and when we add the other colors on our next step, then it'll come together, I promise you. So let that painting dry for about 10 to 12 minutes. No more than 12 minutes is really needed for it to be fully dry, but in order for us to finish this, those colors need to be 100% dry to the touch. So I'll see you in a sec.